Aye, boom. Welcome to the complete tutorial on mastering UK drill beats in FL Studio 2023 edition. Whether you're a beginner or a seasoned producer, this step-by-step tutorial will guide you through the process of creating authentic UK drill. From creating dark, textured, ambient melodies, all the way to hard-hitting drums and crazy 808s. This tutorial is going to cover all the techniques you need to know and learn, and by the end, you'll understand how to make these standout type drill beats. Before we get into actually making the beat, you need to make sure that you have the right sound selection, and I'm talking drum kits and VSTs. Please, for the love of God, stop using free drill drum kits from YouTube from back in 2019, because they ain't it. Drill is definitely a genre that depends so heavily on sound selection. Invest in your craft, level up your sound, use the best available sounds. I mean, the best available drum kits are probably from me, so link for my store in the description. Let's get into this, man. Starting at the beginning of any beat, the melody. Now, we're going to be making dark UK drill today. But when it comes to dark UK drill melodies, you should be thinking of the following: pads, vocals, textures and atmospheres, piano, and phrases. If you're unsure about any of the things that I just said, don't worry, because I will be going into more detail about all of them. But if I'm making dark drill, these are the elements that I'm thinking of before I even start the beat. Dark drill beats are 90% of the time made in a minor scale. So when tackling your melody, make sure you set out a scale for yourself at the very start. Today, we're working in D minor, and we are coming into Analog Labs, and we're starting off with the pads. Because we're in D minor, we're going to start with the D minor chord. We're going to go ahead and get rid of the middle note. Something that I've noticed while making drill is that I rarely tend to use like standard triad chords. I almost always delete this note from the middle. And to make this chord a little bit full, we're just going to drop our root note down an octave, and we're just going to layer this over so it's 8 bars. We're going to come up above the A note, and we're going to try add a couple of top notes. And we're going to choose E, and the reason is because E and F are beside each other in this scale. Drill melody chord progressions do tend to sound the same, and that's because the best way to make these dark, eerie chords is to play around these two notes and create lots of tension. When making pads, I almost always stereo separate them and always add a little bit of reverb onto them just to make them sound a little bit more spacey. As for the chord progression, this is genuinely just about it. People need to understand that layering sounds is probably the most underrated thing in music. People just become lazy and they just want one preset that's just gonna sound so good and then move on to the next part of the beat. Best way to create authentic sounding melodies is being able to layer multiple presets together and getting them to sound good together. To essentially create like your own unique sounding pad that nobody's used before. That's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to come back into Analog Labs here. We're going to find a couple other pads. Now when I play all three of them together, just like that, our pad is sounding way more full and way more ambient. So now let's try and move on to textures and atmospheres. Textures and atmospheres are basically the sounds that are kind of hidden underneath and tucked away in your melody. The sounds are extremely subtle, but sometimes have the biggest impact on your melody. We're coming into Atom in Contact, which is a great bank for atmospheres and textures. Ooh, this one's kind of hard. It's going to layer it along the top note of our chord. That little bleep kind of reminds me of like a heart monitor or like a heartbeat monitor in a hospital. Again, adding to that kind of eerie texture. We're also taking this kind of like vocal atmosphere from Farlight. It's just as simple as that. A little texture again in the back of the beat. So let's move on to vocals. Vocals are such a dominant part of all drill melodies. It's no secret that I abuse them in literally nearly every tutorial. But instead of using vocalize 2, you're coming into lures. This could nearly act like a texture as well. It's not very dominant. It's just kind of sit in the back of the beat. For now, for vocals, that's going to do, but later on in the beat, we will add in an actual phrase. But it's time to get some classic UK drill halftime piano in here. We're just using the exact same chord progression again, except pitching it up an octave and then pressing Alt and S to slightly strum it. Just a nice bit of subtlety. Last thing I want to talk about when it comes to drill melodies is phrases. Because when I started producing, or even when I started making drill, I had no idea what phrases were. But I feel like phrases have gotten more popular kind of as the years have gone on. I'm actually throwing it back here Hey, yo. Coming into the classic Sonoscore phrase banks. Back in like 2020, these things were rinsed. I genuinely haven't used these in probably like 2 years, so it's kind of fun to come back to them. Genuinely just go through phrase after phrase. You can hear that something just kind of slots into the beat perfectly and sounds like it should be there. The flute is crazy, by the way. I know a flute with a dark drill beat ain't exactly the norm, but we're gonna roll with this for now. Next, sticking with the Sonoscore phrases, we're coming into the ethnic strings and we're grabbing an Indian S-Raj. Now we kind of want to complement this flute a little bit, so we want to try getting some pockets of space that are gonna kind of come out of the flute and then into the S-Raj. I believe there's a term in music for this, the call and the answer. And then lastly, to top the phrases off, we're not using vocalize too. We're actually coming back into Sonoscore lyrical vocal phrases. Now, it sounds like there is kind of a lot going on right now, but when we play it all together, Melodies kind of flowing around nicely. Once you get your melody together, something that I would recommend is consolidating them into its own track. Just because I've been listening to this melody for so long that my ears are kind of starting to get fatigued and not even really focusing anymore. But when you repitch, it kind of like makes your ears refocus. We pitched everything down 300 cents. I don't know why, but when you repitch something, it always just sounds nastier. I feel like there's so much more pockets of space in this key. So that's another tip. Always experiment with the keys of your beat. Always try to repitch things. Now it's time for drums. Now listen, I'm not going to go too in depth here with mixing because I have numerous other videos where I go vigorously in detail about mixing, and I'll leave them linked in the description. But if you just want quick sauce straight away, I have an Aries mixer kit, which basically gives you everything that I use, from my templates to my everyday mixes of hi-hats, counter snares, snares, perks, kicks, 808s, all of that. So if you're ever feeling like your patterns are right, but your mix just ain't it, I'm telling you, go get this kit. Your mixing already 10 times better. Link in the description for all my kits. Let's start with the counter snare. And in this beat, we're going to be using a light counter snare. Now, there is a difference between a light counter snare and a heavy counter snare. A heavy counter snare, you kind of tend to use a bit more of a slow kind of flow. Whereas if you use a light counter snare, you kind of want to get kind of like skippy, flowy hats. You want to be able to jump into the beat and then jump straight back out of the beat with the counter snare. I don't know how to describe it exactly. And see the way what I mean? It's like stopping and starting. Next, we're going to want to layer this light counter snare with a heavier counter snare at the start of these slow points. And see the way there's a delay on this heavy counter snare? That's from the Aries mixer kit. Alright, next is the snare. Don't be afraid to use the snare more often than its actual like main snare points. You can really create a nice bounce with your snare. Next, I feel like I want to kind of fill in a couple of pockets of spaces with a few perks. And now it's time for the 808, and of course we are using the classic Valhalla 808 from my Valhalla drum kit. The 808 is probably the most important part of a drill beat. It can either make a good drill beat a terrible drill beat, or it can make a good drill beat a god tier drill beat. Make sure you're using good 808s. Valhalla. When sliding drill 808s, the main slides you want to be using are kind of based around the tension notes, which would be these here, which in the scale of B will be these notes. Notice how all melodic elements revolve around tension in drill. And then after that, you kind of just want to place notes where it makes sense. Sometimes you got to think of the 808 as an actual counter melody itself. Again, I have other videos dedicated just to drill 808s, so if you're still unsure about any of this, I would recommend going and checking them out as well. Lastly, my kick, and everyone's asking me how my kick hits so hard, and the secret is I use the preset that's in the Aries mixer kit. Your kicks are so important that they need to also build tension. If you constantly use kicks, it kind of just takes away from the beat. I see a lot of people that just like put kicks on top of like every 808 note, and it sounds so bad, man. And then the last thing to do is arrange. All you want to do is just keep the beat from getting stale. You want constant changes in your beat, whether that be melodic changes or drum changes. So for example, we start the beat with the full melody. When some drums come in, we cut part of the melody. Then when the beat drops, we bring back in nearly all the melodic elements and all the drums. And then for the second part of the hook, we bring in a piano again just to spice it up slightly. And coming out of the hook, we take out melodic elements. We also take out the 808 and kick. And for the second part of the verse, bring back in the 808 and kick while also still leaving out some melodic elements. And then the bridge part is just kind of the same as the intro part. Anyway, here's the full beat. And I really would appreciate if you could make sure that you've hit the like button for me on this video. It's taken me quite a while to record this, and I can only imagine how long it's about to take me to edit this as well. If this is your first time watching me, make sure you subscribe to me, man. I upload twice a week on YouTube. I'm spilling all the sauce weekly. Yeah, man, love. Here's the full beat.
Slippery, this one.
Even in the arrangement here, I'm making the 808 pattern unique. I'm adding in more variations to the 808. See again, it's sounding different here. There's no melody, there's no 808, there's no kick. Different version of the melody. We just literally loop straight back to here. Run me up on Instagram and Twitch, man, because they're the only two things I care about. I'm out. Good luck, see you later. Bow.